All right, you guys, so lately there's been a lot of talk about no-till food plotting. There's a lot of guys out there on YouTube and elsewhere on the Outdoor Channel pushing no-till concepts. And a lot of it is for good reason. There's some really cool benefits to doing no-till for soil health and things like that. But there's also a part of it that no one really likes to talk about. Number one is no-till food plotting really only gives you two choices. You either A, have to use a lot of chemicals, herbicides, things like glyphosate on your land. That's option A. Or option B is you need to get a grain drill or a no-till drill, something like that, and you're planting through living crops and you're using successive crops that mingle with one another. You have this multiculture of different plant species, and for a lot of guys that's a great option, either one of those, option A or B. But there's still a swath of the country out here for the rest of us that don't see either of those as great options. And so again, that option A is that heavy chemical usage, and option B with no-till is that multiculture of plants and forbs that just doesn't fit my goals here, what I'm trying to do with my food plot. What I want on my land here for my food plot is I want the best brassica plot in this whole area, my whole neighborhood, all right? I want to make sure that I have the most powerful food attractant here in the whole neighborhood. And how I believe I'm going to do that is through a beautiful, luscious, green brassica plot, okay? Turnips, radish, rape, all that good stuff. And so doing a true no-till approach here would be pretty difficult for me if I don't want to use any chemicals, any herbicide, and I want that pure, luscious brassica field, right? It's just tough to do if you're not touching the soil at all. Now I realize that's kind of a bold comment to say that no-till really only gives you two options as a food plotter, but do a little research. I've scanned YouTube, I've scanned other channels and looked for ways that guys can do no-till where you're getting that monoculture of brassicas without the use of chemicals. It's really tough to do. And that sort of brings me to the point of my video here is talking about my goals for my food plot, and I want you guys to think about what your goals are as well. I know the topic of chemical usage and glyphosate, things like that, folks can get pretty opinionated about it, and we all, at the end of the day, we all get to make our own choice, right? If you want to use glyphosate, herbicides, that's your choice. There's nothing wrong with that. My dad uses it. I know a lot of guys that use herbicide, and heck, my dad is healthy as a horse. He has his 2 cans of beer every night, and he says that's what keeps him so young and healthy. So, you know, is herbicide bad for you? I don't know. All we can do is look at the data that's out there today, and at this point in time, it seems inconclusive. So I'm the type of person who's going to err on the side of caution and say if it's inconclusive at this point, I'm just going to avoid it if there's a way to avoid it. And that's really one of the cool things about what I'm doing here on my food plot here in Minnesota is I am avoiding chemical usage altogether, and I'm not totally adhering to the tenets of no-till. My approach here in this case is, some have called it a low-till approach, where I'm just really trying to minimize the amount of times that I'm disturbing the soil out here in my food plot. So you guys can see behind me here and all around me, this is my summer cover crop. This is buckwheat. And so right now I would say on average this stuff is about, I would say 12 to 18 inches tall. It's June 27th today. Okay, so let's talk about some of the trade-offs here with choosing true no-till or low-till approach like I'm going to be doing. So starting with no-till, I think some of probably the biggest benefit first and foremost is just the soil health that you're creating by doing true no-till, where you're not touching the soil at all with a disc blade or a tiller blade. And you know, by keeping those living roots in the ground and keeping that diversity of plant species growing at all times, there's an incredible exchange going on, pulling carbon out of the atmosphere and fixing nitrogen in the ground. It's really a kind of an incredible process, and there's a couple guys out there that are really leading this, especially from an industrial ag level. Gabe Brown and Keith Burns. You guys should look them up on YouTube if you want to learn a little bit more about the soil biology and just remarkable benefit that no-till has, especially at the large scale ag level. on a landscape level, it's restoring topsoil really in a remarkable way. So Keith Burns has a YouTube video out there called Carbonomics. I'll see if I can link that down below in the description. Gabe Brown, same thing. He's a no-till farmer out in North Dakota. You can learn some more about that from them. But again, some of the drawbacks of no-till are that, again, you're using a lot of herbicide. And to me, that's a little bit contradictory to the whole notion of, you know, this sort of natural regenerative no-till process. You know, to plant these beautiful cover crops and then just to burn them down with glyphosate has never really made a ton of sense to me. So there's trade-offs, right? So now let's talk about this low-till method that I'm going to be doing. I come in here in the spring and I till this one time to get the soil bed prepared for my summer cover crop, in this case buckwheat. And doing that does disturb the soil, so I'm losing that soil aggregation as they talk about in those videos. And so that's a trade-off, that's a negative, right? By disturbing the soil, I'm exposing it to more sunlight, which is going to dry out the soil. But the benefit that I get from it is I don't have to use any chemicals. I don't have to use any glyphosate. And I also get to prepare the soil bed in such a way that I'm killing these weeds and I'm killing all of last year's residue, things like that, and getting a nice aerated soil bed ready for my summer cover crop here. So again, that's one tilling in the spring or disking. I plant my summer cover crop and let this go till about mid-July, early to mid-July. And as I mentioned, I'm going to be doing a couple of tests here. In one part of it, I'm going to be mowing, then disking, then seeding my brassicas. And then on another part of this, I'm going to be seeding into the buckwheat, then mowing the buckwheat down right on top of the seed and just leaving it. So in that second scenario, I would only be tilling this one time in the whole year. In the first scenario I talked about, I'm going to be doing another disking or tilling midsummer. So I'm gaining a lot of the benefits of no-till in the sense that I'm keeping a living root in the soil for almost the entire year. I'm really just losing that 1 week in the middle of summer where when I terminate my summer cover crop and then I have my brassica plot coming up, there might be a week in there where, you know, it's pure exposed soil and the sun is baking it and drying it out, but that's a pretty short period of time before my brassica seeds are germinating and they're starting new living roots. And the other thing is, for those folks doing no-till that are doing a burn down with glyphosate, they're doing the same thing. They just have that chaff and crop residue on the surface. They're killing that living root as well. And maybe the best part about this low-till approach that I'm taking, this truly organic, herbicide-free low-till approach, is that I am really getting a ton of organic matter back into the soil, you guys. North Dakota State University, NDSU, has done research on this, and they've shown that a successful buckwheat crop can yield 3 tons of organic dry matter per acre. 3 tons just from this buckwheat after 6 to 8 weeks of growth. So we had a pretty late spring this year. It was just cool temps for most of the spring, and I think we got off to a little bit of a late start. So I don't think I'm going to get a full yield out of this, the full 3 tons per acre, but even if I got 1.5 tons, let's say, of dry organic matter that I can incorporate back into my topsoil on my food plot, that has profound impacts for moisture retention and things like that in the soil. Soil scientists have proven that for every 1% increase in organic matter content in your soil, that can hold an additional 16,000 gallons of usable moisture for your plants. That's 16,000 gallons being held in the topsoil when it rains for use by your plants, for your fall food, your fall crop, for every 1% gain in organic matter in your soil. So when I mow this down, when I lightly disc it back in midsummer, I am incorporating and folding in just an incredible amount of organic matter. This buckwheat is the perfect crop for that, and I'm really taking advantage of that, especially in my area with these sandy soils. increasing the amount of organic matter is huge in sandy soil areas like this. So I'm still cashing in on and taking advantage of that moisture retention property. I look at it like this, you guys. If I can trade off, if I can forego having to use glyphosate herbicide on my land, and in exchange I do this low-till method, that's a trade-off I'm willing to take. I've weighed the pros and the cons, I've done my research, and I really like this approach. The other nice thing about getting one-tilling or disking in midsummer is you're gonna terminate and kill all of these weeds along with it. You guys can look behind me here, there's a lot of grass in here too. So this is a newer plot, food plot right here, and so a lot of this grass is fighting like heck to try to come back in here. And when I do my summer disking or tilling, I'm going to be able to kill and turn up a lot of these grass roots along with that. And once I get my fall food plot planted, it's going to have very little competition. I'm really excited about this approach. Again, at the end of the day, you guys, this fits my goals here with my food plot. I want you guys to think about what your goals are. For those of you that have been following along, the U.S. Court of Appeals recently overturned the EPA's decision that herbicide is completely and totally safe for human use. Do we have a conclusive answer one way or the other whether herbicide harms humans? There's a lot of speculation out there. I'm just going to err on the side of caution. I don't want to use chemicals on my food plots, but what you guys choose on your food plots is totally up to you, and I respect whatever decision you make. I think at the end of the day, we need to remember that we're all one hunting community, and that we do need to keep a united front as we discuss these things. I know things like herbicide, food plot planting methods can get really divisive for hunters, and that's not my intent with this video. My intent is to, I think it's healthy to discuss and debate these things as a hunting community. I want to hear from you guys. I'm open to having my mind changed. If the science changes and if there's conclusive evidence one way or another, I'm open to having my mind changed on the whole topic of chemicals and herbicides and things like that. I hope you guys got something out of this video. I want to hear from you guys. Hit the subscribe button, give this video a thumbs up if you liked it, and drop me a comment down below. Take care.